So what does it look like when a company is in a perfect spot to ride a massive economic wave? Well, we're going to dive into that today because a major financial firm thinks they've found one, and honestly, their case is pretty compelling.
And it all boils down to this one really cool idea. I want you to picture a giant tree, okay? It has these deep roots for stability and sprawling branches that just keep on growing. That's the exact metaphor we're going to use to understand why analysts are so optimistic here.
Now, this isn't just some random guess. Our entire explainer is grounded in this super detailed report from the analysts at Motilal Oswal. We're going straight to the source to see exactly what they're seeing.
All right, so let's cut right to the chase. What's the single biggest takeaway from this whole comprehensive report?
Yep, it's a straight-up buy rating. The analysts are putting their chips down, signaling a really strong conviction that this is an opportunity worth looking at. But, a rating is one thing. What does that actually mean in numbers?
Well, they've slapped a one-year target price of 3,500 rupees on the stock. That's the specific number they believe the company's value is heading towards.
And this is why they're so excited. Based on the price when they published this, that target represents a potential upside of over 21%. So what's fueling all this confidence? To get that, we actually need to zoom out for a second.
Okay, let's pull back and look at the big picture here. Because this isn't just a story about one company, it's about the incredibly fertile ground it's planted in. And to really get it, there's one key term you gotta know. And that term is AUM, which stands for Assets Under Management. Put simply, it's the total amount of money a company like this manages for all of its clients. The bigger the AUM, the bigger their scale. Simple as that. Now check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. India's mutual fund AUM is just 21% of its GDP. Look at that world average, 64%. Now that gap, that's not a weakness. It's a huge, huge runway for growth. We're talking about a massive, untapped market.
So you've got all this potential, right? But what's actually lighting the fire? It's people. A whole new wave of investors is jumping into the market, and that is changing absolutely everything.
And you can see it happening in real time right here. The slice of the pie belonging to everyday individual investors has jumped from 53% to 60% in just a few years. And we're now at nearly 60 million unique investors in the market.
The tide is definitely rising.
Okay, so with this booming market as the backdrop, let's put the spotlight back on the company at the center of all this. Who exactly is this investment giant? So, on one side, you've got Motilal Oswal. These are the analysts who did all the homework. And on the other, the company they're looking at, ICICI Prudential Asset Management Company, or AMC for short. So who are they? Well, in a word, a powerhouse. I mean, we're talking about India's second largest asset manager, and they're handling a staggering 9.1 trillion rupees. Plus, they've got the backing of two absolute giants, India's own ICICI Bank and the global player Prudential.
Okay, this gets us to the really juicy part. We know the what, it's a buy rating. But now we're going to dig into the why. What's their secret sauce?
And here we are, back at that tree. The analysts actually use this metaphor to structure their entire argument, which is just a brilliant way to break down a pretty complex business into three simple, really powerful ideas.
So first things first, every great tree needs deep, strong roots. For an asset manager, those roots are how they reach customers and gather all those assets. It's their distribution network.
And just look at this chart. It shows you how incredibly healthy their root system is. See, they're not just relying on one way to get business. They have this really balanced mix of independent distributors, direct sales, partnerships with banks, and more. This kind of diversity, it's just so important. It gives them stability and a bunch of different ways to grow, no matter which way the market winds are blowing.
All right, from the roots, we go up to the trunk. And the trunk, that's all about the core financial health and the efficiency of the business. And for ICICI Prudential, this is where they really shine. Best-in-class profitability.
And wow, the numbers here there's something else. We are talking about operating margins that are consistently above 70% and a return on equity around 82%. This isn't just good, the report makes it clear, it's way ahead of most of their competitors. They are running an incredibly efficient and profitable machine.
So finally, what about the fruit on the branches? This is the good stuff, right? It's the products they sell, and, crucially, how well those products actually do for investors. This is what brings people in, and what makes them stay.
And it really comes down to two key things here. First, their funds actually perform. Over 80% of their assets are ranked in the top half of performers, which is fantastic. And second, they're not just a one-trick pony. They've been branching out beyond just traditional mutual funds. And those newer products have grown to make up 15% of their revenue, all the way up from just 7% a few years back.
So, you've got strong roots, a solid trunk, and branches full of fruit. Let's pull it all together now and see what that actually means for the bottom line.
So the analysts are basically saying, hey, all this strength is going to translate into some serious growth. They're projecting revenues to grow at a compound rate of about 15% a year, and for core profits to grow even faster, at around 16% a year through 2028. That right there is the very definition of being built to compound.
So the picture Motilal Oswal paints is pretty clear. A deeply rooted, super profitable company smack in the middle of a massive market expansion. The path forward seems set. But as we all know, markets can be wild, right? So the big question, the one we're left with, is this. When the next storm inevitably hits, how strong will this tree really be?